Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com, dwyersportsbetting.com. Remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. Now, I'm a firm believer that some days you have to be unpopular. Right? Parents know this intuitively. So, when my 1-year-old tries to swim in the pool by herself, no, it's not happening. I'll take the crying, I'll take the booze. It's not happening. When our 13-year-old doesn't want to take a shower every day, nope, it's not happening. Again, I'll take the booze. I'll be unpopular. I'll live. Well, same thing with boxing. I know right now, people are looking at Anthony Joshua, unbeaten. 100% KO ratio, 100%. Right? Beat me out of my last bet. I actually bet against him. I thought Klitschko would beat him. He wins that fight by stoppage. Right? Just counting the knockdowns in the fight, he knocks Klitschko down 3 times in that fight. I get that he pulled 90,000 people for the boxing match, that the numbers pay-per-view were better than expected. I get that this guy right now is at the center of what's happening in boxing. He's at the center of what's happening in its glamour division, in my opinion, and that's the heavyweight division. Yes, I'm biased. As I like to say, they're the heavyweights, and then there's everyone else, right? Anthony Joshua is probably the guy at heavyweight who right now, most of the world feels if they had to name one heavyweight champion, they would probably go with him, right? He's been validated by beating Vladimir Klitschko, and he did so by stoppage. So, I understand many people are going to say, sour grapes, Dwyer, you got to be kidding me. But, let's return to the heavyweight division. Look, there have been times in my life where everyone knew who the heavyweight champ was. Right? When Mike Tyson was heavyweight champ, you know what? You knew Mike Tyson was the heavyweight champion. Lennox Lewis, Vitaly Klitschko, Vladimir Klitschko. Right? You knew who the heavyweight champion was. If you got 10 of your friends together, okay, 2 of your friends are always going to be loons. They're always going to pick someone off the grid. But probably 7 or 8 of you during the Mike Tyson era would say, yeah, Mike Tyson's the heavyweight champ. Well, the point of this video is to make the argument that if you're a gambler, right, your biggest value is going to be betting against Anthony Joshua whenever he fights an elite opponent. Right? 2 groups of people saw his fight. Right? The rest of us and elite fighters. And I'm just telling you, elite fighters weren't impressed. Right? Now, let's talk about the possibility of a rematch between Anthony Joshua and Vladimir Klitschko. I understand. Again, people are going to say, Dwyer, you're crazy. You're just booing and hating on young fighters. This guy has done all he can, 100% KO ratio and stuff like that. But understand, Vladimir Klitschko going into his fight against Anthony Joshua was a 2-to-1 underdog. Think about that. Vladimir Klitschko at 2-to-1. Now, as gamblers, our goal is to find value. Right? It's to pick the guy who is mispriced. Well, because Joshua knocked out Vladimir Klitschko, right, I'm guessing in the rematch you're probably going to get even better odds than you got in this fight. And folks, the odds in this fight were stupendous. So, if a rematch is announced, right, I want gamblers to think about. Vladimir Klitschko's superior hand speed. Vladimir Klitschko's superior fluidity. Vladimir Klitschko's superior skill set. Right? Vladimir Klitschko's doing a lot better than Anthony Joshua. A lot better. In their first fight. Let me point out too. I know Joshua gets the knockout. Okay, great. But if Vladimir Klitschko had hit Joshua with the level of uppercut that Joshua hit Vladimir Klitschko with, wouldn't Vladimir Klitschko have won the fight? In other words, we didn't learn in the first fight, in my opinion, that Vladimir Klitschko's chin is more suspect than Joshua's chin. Right? Because, quite frankly, Vladimir Klitschko knocked down Joshua, who looked clueless. It's just that Joshua landed the signature punch of the fight, that uppercut. Even in the 5th round, when Klitschko goes down, and Klitschko gets up and looks uncoordinated to me, Klitschko actually does very well the rest of that round. Very well. So, if I'm unsure of who has the better chin, and you should be unsure as well, because understand, Anthony Joshua's been fighting the mailman, the milkman, the weatherman, right? I would argue that Vladimir Klitschko is the first really elite fighter that he's fought. And he went down in the fight. Right? We don't really know a lot about Anthony Joshua's chin, do we? So let's just say, jury's out on Anthony Joshua's chin. Right? We don't know if it's better than Vladimir Klitschko's chin. Right? It's amazing Vladimir Klitschko, right after he gets hit with that signature uppercut, is still upright for a few moments. Right? Let me point out too, and Luis Ortiz has pointed this out. When the ref stopped the fight, and yes, Klitschko's down twice in the round, twice in the 11th, but when the ref stops the fight, as I said on the post-fight video, looks to me like Vladimir Klitschko is blocking shots. He's not out unconscious on his feet, he's blocking shots. Now I do believe, since Anthony Joshua threw himself out in the 5th round, Luis Ortiz might have a point. If the ref had allowed the 11th round to continue, if, and it's a big if Vladimir Klitschko survived the 11th round, what kind of gas left in his tank would Anthony Joshua had for the 12th round? So my point to you is, in a rematch, and I know it's going to be unpopular, I know the fight just happened, I know who won the fight, trust me, but in a rematch between Vladimir Klitschko and Anthony Joshua, you need to be on the Klitschko side of the aisle. You got 2-to-1 odds the first time around. Anthony Joshua could well have lost his title in the 6th round of the fight. Klitschko himself is saying, man, if I had to do it over again, the second half of that 6th round, I would have stepped on the gas after knocking him down. Right? Value matters in betting. If you're going to get better than 2-to-1 odds on Vladimir Klitschko against a guy he's already knocked down, who Vladimir Klitschko still has vastly more experience than, I say you're getting a damn good deal. The time to think about these fights are before they're announced. If Vladimir Klitschko continues his career, and he might not because he's in his 40s and there are a lot of things to do in life, but if he continues his career, if a rematch is announced, it could be in the same location, I don't care. I'm going to go with the guy who lost the first fight, as unpopular as that is. Let me also point out too, after the first fight, my college roommate hit me up. Right now, this guy, high-powered engineer, smart guy, real smart, it was his first time seeing Anthony Joshua. He didn't even know, and this is the way engineers are, right? Blinders. He didn't even know Anthony Joshua had won the gold medal in the 2012 Olympics. So he knew who Vladimir Klitschko was, right? Because Klitschko, longtime heavyweight champion for years. He was very excited about Joshua's victory. Let's just say my college roommate, who used to live in Vegas, by the way, is a casual boxing fan. I'm guessing the casual boxing fans are going to push the line up even more. If Vladimir Klitschko went off as a 2-1 underdog the first fight, that second fight, wow, what are you going to get? 2.5 to 1? 3 to 1? Higher than that? On a guy who we know can knock down Anthony Joshua because we've seen it. Let me also say, too, rewatch the film of the fight. You're going to notice Vladimir Klitschko throws some hellacious left hooks at times. They were off, right? They didn't land. I give Joshua a lot of credit on backing away from the left hooks, which is a big accomplishment. But Vladimir Klitschko hadn't fought since 2015. Right? If he signs to fight Joshua later this year, Eddie Hearn's talking about a fight in the fall. Wow. You know, if he can straighten out the left hook part of his game and be even more effective, don't you think just on value you need to be on the Vladimir Klitschko side of the play? Well, let's go around the world of heavyweights, because I think we learned some other things watching the fight. I was a little bit surprised by how slow Anthony Joshua looked versus Vladimir Klitschko. Right? Joshua looked like he had to plant his feet before throwing power punches. Right? There's a little bit of a second delay that Joshua does before throwing power punches. Now, let's just talk about foot speed, and I know Joshua is younger than some of the guys I'm going to mention here. But isn't he at a foot speed disadvantage against Lucas Brown? Right, let's remember, there are elite heavyweights out there whose name, for whatever reason, isn't on the front page or isn't on the front page of the sports section. Right, Lucas Brown moves faster than Anthony Joshua, doesn't he? Right, Joseph Parker. Parker certainly moves faster than Anthony Joshua. In fact, let me go further on Parker. I think Parker's a better athlete than Anthony Joshua. I guarantee you that if Parker were in there against Vladimir Klitschko, Klitschko wouldn't have looked that much faster than Joseph Parker. Now, Parker has other problems. As I've said here online, I personally thought he lost to Carlos Takam. Right? I get the feeling Parker, who has a better back foot game than Anthony Joshua, sometimes allows his opponent to lead a bit too much. Parker's that young guy figuring out the game. But can we agree that Parker is much harder to find in the ring than Anthony Joshua? Parker's far less clunkier, moves a lot better. Let me also point out, too, that I know Joshua has prodigious power. What I want people to do is to look at Alexander Demetrenko on the canvas against Joseph Parker, right? Parker's a guy who has fought a couple of guys who are the worst style matchups for him, right? Andy Ruiz, and we'll get back to Andy, who is front foot heavy and has very fast hands, right? And Carlos Takam, who's a bit unorthodox and who throws punches from weird angles and who moves around the ring, right? So Parker didn't stop either guy. But Parker against a more conventional opponent is absolutely lethal. Look at the KO percentage on Joseph Parker. Let me say, too, you were looking at Vladimir Klitschko's hand speed compared to Anthony Joshua's hand speed. Right? Joseph Parker has faster hands than both of them. You notice it in flashes in a Parker match. Right? One thing we know is Parker certainly has the better jab than Anthony Joshua. Let me say this about Deontay Wilder. Now, Wilder has the best ring coverage in the heavyweight division. There are times when you're watching a Wilder fight where he hits a guy and you're saying, my God, how did he hit the guy from so far away? Sometimes it looks like Wilder's sitting in the front row and he's hitting a guy in the middle of the ring. Right? Deontay Wilder has one-punch knockout power. More importantly, he has much faster feet. Much faster feet than Anthony Joshua. I'll agree, Joshua has faster feet than Bermane-Stiverne. But revisit that Wilder-Stiverne fight, where Wilder wins the title. You're going to notice that Wilder's moving around the ring. Wilder's moving away from Stiverne. Now, the concern I have on Wilder is I still believe he's tailor-made for a Mike Tyson type of fighter. Right? I think Wilder would have all kinds of problems with Andy Ruiz, who would be relentlessly coming inside and getting underneath Wilder's long arms. But didn't Joshua have a problem getting inside on Vladimir Klitschko? Right? Doesn't this Klitschko tape show fighters how to stop Joshua's right hands to the body? If Wilder watches the tapes closely and figures out how to keep Joshua, who's big and clunky, he's not sudden, right? How to keep Joshua away from getting inside on him, wouldn't Wilder have a shot on Joshua? Right? Let me say this too. You have guys who aren't superior athletes to Anthony Joshua, who look like they have parts of their game that would give Joshua all they can handle. Right? Understand, Luis Ortiz knows how to get inside a lot better than Anthony Joshua does. I couldn't imagine Vladimir Klitschko fighting Luis Ortiz and Luis Ortiz not getting inside on him. I just couldn't imagine it. Right? Now, Luis Ortiz, of course, in fact, all of these elite fighters, watching AJ, who's an excellent fighter, beat Klitschko, all of them are going to be on the lookout for that uppercut, because they've seen the damage an Anthony Joshua uppercut can do. But against Luis Ortiz, who would have the better uppercut? Folks, revisit Luis Ortiz against Brian Jennings. That's an uppercut fight. What's interesting with Ortiz, too, is he doesn't take until the 11th round to land an uppercut. Right? He's a guy who is watching you and makes the adjustment and then starts throwing uppercuts with both hands. Now, Luis Ortiz isn't a great athlete. I don't view him like I view Joseph Parker. Joseph Parker looks to me like, you know, if he wanted to play another sport, he could go play another sport. Right? Parker looks like he's, you know, an outside athlete. In fact, Parker's interesting because Parker might be what I call a freak athlete, only Parker downplays it. You only see it in moments. Right? Luis Ortiz isn't a great athlete. I wouldn't consider Luis Ortiz to be an above average athlete. But doesn't Luis Ortiz strike you as the kind of guy who, given that Joshua himself conceded the pocket to Vladimir Klitschko from the opening bell? Look at that first round. Given that Joshua is on his back foot, backing away from the pocket, don't you think, and given that Joshua's back foot game isn't great, right? Joshua looks like he's a different fighter on his back foot than on his front foot. Don't you think Luis Ortiz could come forward, get Joshua on his back foot, smother his punches, and work him over from the inside? Let me say this too. Andy Ruiz. This gets interesting because Ruiz doesn't seem to have a back foot game at all to me. And Ruiz doesn't bend at the waist. He really doesn't. Right? And Ruiz is physically smaller than Anthony Joshua. Right? But wow. If Andy Ruiz gets inside, why would this fight be different than Andy Ruiz's fight against Joe Hanks? Are you that convinced with Anthony Joshua's defense? Are you also that convinced with Anthony Joshua's stamina? Folks, he's out in the 6th round. He's out in the 6th round. He needs a second win. Now, he gets the second win, in part because Vladimir Klitschko lets him off the hook. Right? You can't be out. It's a bad optic. Andy Ruiz, a shorter guy with much faster hands. Folks, Andy Ruiz has much faster hands than Anthony Joshua, who was not faster than Vladimir Klitschko's hand speed. Right? I thought Klitschko had the faster hands against Anthony Joshua. I'm telling you, in terms of hand speed, Andy Ruiz has faster hand speed than Anthony Joshua. Right? So, let's just say this. I haven't even gotten to a fighter who I personally consider to be better than Anthony Joshua, and that's Tyson Fury. Tyson Fury claims he could beat Joshua with one hand behind his back. He might be right. My concern with Fury, though, is I'm hearing he's weighing over 300 pounds these days. Right? Fury's a year away. He's been out of the ring, and he doesn't seem to be in fighting shape to me. Right? But understand, Tyson Fury was up on his toes against Vladimir Klitschko and went 12 rounds, was never on the canvas, never looked winded and finished like Anthony Joshua did in the 6th round. Fury's better, quite frankly, than Joshua on the inside and on the outside. Right? Joshua's best hope of beating him would be to catch him rusty. Also, Fury ambidextrous. Right? Just imagine what would have happened in the Klitschko fight if Klitschko, after hammering Joshua, then switched to southpaw while Joshua was tired and Joshua couldn't figure out the angles. Right? So, look, I know I'm going to get booed. Fair enough. I understand I'm raining on a victory parade here, a victory lap, by a young fighter who continues to have a 100% KO ratio. I understand online here I've said, look, when he steps up in competition, he's going to have problems. Well, he stepped up in competition and he got the win. Vladimir Klitschko was gracious in defeat. But my goodness, if Vladimir Klitschko's a 2-1 underdog against Anthony Joshua, who's still green and learning the ropes, I'm guessing many of these other fighters who aren't as known as Vladimir Klitschko, Lucas Brown, Joseph Parker, right? Even Deontay Wilder, I'm guessing you'll be able to get all of them as significant discounts from where they should be. In other words, as great as Joshua's record is, and it couldn't be better, unbeaten, 100% KO percentage, as good as it is, the value side of the play against these elite fighters, right? Vladimir Klitschko, Tyson Fury, Joseph Parker, Lucas Brown, Deontay Wilder, Luis Ortiz, Andy Ruiz, right? The value side would be with the underdogs. Right now, Joshua claims he's going to mow down the other elite fighters at heavyweight one by one. Anthony, you got your work cut out for you. Right? For those who hedge bets, I think the hedge makes itself. I'll agree. Anthony Joshua can knock down, a tree with that punch. Okay, great. He could stop anybody if he lands that uppercut that he hits Vladimir Klitschko with in the 11th round. Okay, he could drop any of these guys. Right? The same can be said for Deontay Wilder. If he lands flush, all of these guys fall. The same could be said, I'm telling you, don't sleep on Joseph Parker's power. The same could be said for Joseph Parker. Right? Understand, Carlos Takam went to Russia, was competitive with Alexander Povetkin well into that fight. Right? Parker has fought some tougher opponents, right, outside of the Vladimir Klitschko fight, which Joshua just had, than Joshua has fought. I'm telling you, if Joseph Parker lands flush, he can stop you. Right? We saw what Luis Ortiz did against Brian Jennings, who moves a lot better than Anthony Joshua. Understand, if Joshua has an Achilles heel, in my opinion, it's his foot speed. Tell me the round where he cuts off the ring on Vladimir Klitschko before he has Klitschko badly hurt in the 11th round. Right? A mobile guy with a jab who has power and ring coverage. Or a guy who can cut off the ring on Joshua, not allow Joshua to extend his arms, take away Joshua's body attack like Vladimir Klitschko did, and not allow Joshua to throw that long right hand. A guy who could get inside of all of that. A Luis Ortiz would probably be a greater than 2-to-1 underdog. Hell, Vladimir Klitschko was just a 2-to-1 underdog. Right? Would probably get long odds and would be a live dog against Joshua. That's how I see it. Let me hear from you. Let's talk heavyweights. Let me point out that the time to think of a fight is before it's announced. Because sometimes these casinos will issue crazy odds when a fighter is as highly regarded as Anthony Joshua is right now, right? Pulling 90,000 people. Getting casual fans like my college roommate to see him and say, my God, who is this guy? Right? The casual fan money is going to pour on the Anthony Joshua side of the bet. The challenge for the rest of us is to say, well, whoa, was Vladimir Klitschko lucky against Anthony Joshua in catching him? Was that atypical? Or did Vladimir Klitschko have certain structural advantages? Better set of skills, better foot speed, better technique. Right? Didn't the knockdown come after Vladimir Klitschko closed the 5th round strongly? Then he starts the 6th round. Isn't Joshua still clueless? I know the way the judges scored the fight. Watching the early rounds of the fight, first round, Vladimir Klitschko comes in, Joshua backs away, Klitschko's the lead. How did you score that first round? Who had the better ring generalship? As you were watching the fight, who did you think was dictating the action? When Klitschko gets hit with the bomb in the 11th round, who did you have ahead on your personal scorecard? Was the fight still competitive? If it was, and if you feel Klitschko could sharpen up a few things, the left hook, for example, isn't that the side of the play to be on if you're getting 2-to-1 odds? Look, I could diss Deontay Wilder all I want. Wow, if Wilder is a 2-to-1 favorite against a guy who actually hit the 2-to-1 underdog against a guy who actually hit the canvas off a right hand in his previous fight, wouldn't those odds be a little bit too wide? Anyway, that's how I see it. Let me hear from you. I hope you leave your comments in the comment section to this video. And if there are heavyweights that I haven't mentioned, I'll agree. Yui Fury would certainly have a foot speed advantage on Anthony Joshua, right? If there are other heavyweights who you feel should be in this conversation, right? Kubrat Pulev is out there. Some other fighters are out there, right? then I hope you leave that information in the comments section to this video. Thanks for stopping by.